Yo, this is fantasy, no need for panicking. You just sit back, relax, enjoy the pageantry. We love the game that's first, the one with hard hits. Like mitts, we catching wins and now we can't quit. Like GMs in the draft, we looking for a net. We never stop looking, that's the one and only pledge. The wedge is between us and the trophy. Think I'm about to stop on me, you must not know me. On the pod, we try to chill and keep it real. Like Bill, we always better checking for a steal. Yo, we loading up on all the sleepers and keepers. My expertise is running backs and wide receivers. Believe you never knew how much you needed. This ain't Brooklyn, but there still ain't no sleeping. Welcome to the show! You're listening to the No Sleep Till Football podcast, a co-commish.com production. Here are your hosts, Jerry Adair, Michael Joyner, and Richie Ward.
Hey, welcome to the No Sleep Till Football podcast. I'm your host, Jerry Adair. We are getting dangerously close to being able to finally get a little sleep around here. Hey, Danbone, what's the countdown at right now? How many days till we get to sleep?
Gosh, we got 31 days till we sleep, man. Get that coffee brewed.
31 days, exactly 1 month from tonight's podcast. We have the start of the NFL regular season with the Chiefs and Patriots going at it on a Thursday night. Exciting times indeed. My eyes and brain could all use a little rest, I think. So we're super happy to be here. This will be our third official episode. Our first episode was a two-parter. So if you missed that, check it out after this. This episode will also have two parts. This is part one. As always, we're so grateful that you give us your time when we sit here and discuss this silly game of football that we all love so much. If you like what you hear, send it to a buddy. Send it to a distant family member who might enjoy it. Let's spread the word and get this thing growing. This episode is brought to you by co-commish.com. As always, I'm joined here by the commissioner himself, Michael Joyner.
Hey, buddy.
And a guy who would never challenge to a wrestling match, Richie Ward.
Hey.
What's up, guys?
Hey, look, just for the record, if you get Richie semi-intoxicated, he will try to wrestle every chance he gets. Just ask Danny at the last lake house.
Yeah, my friends like to call it Richie Gets Wrestling.
I don't really like messing with people that know their crap. Sorry, what'd you say, Richie?
Said my friends like to call it Richie Gets Wrestling, and I will not deny it. Man, I'm loving that this is the first podcast we've done virtually, so I'm looking at y'all's beautiful faces on my computer, and the last two we recorded in, Michael's having a baby girl this month, and we recorded our last two podcasts in her beautiful pink nursery, and I'm getting to see that from a distance with these nice golden polka dotted curtains and these children's books on this pink wall. It's great, man. Your Eagles jersey.
Is that the man cave nicely. Or is that something else?
It used to be a man cave, and now it's my daughter's future.
The daughter cave.
The things we give up for our kids.
That's right. The sacrifices we make. Well, very nice. All right, Michael, what do you got for us, man?
Some of the news stories that are out right now. So number one, Quincy Enunwa placed on IR due to neck. Man, this is big, and it's not just for like a couple weeks. This is the season. That's right. Is that right? Season-ending IR?
Oh, my God.
Season-ending. Or Enunwa.
It's just,
really sad.
Man, if the Jets weren't already tanking to get their number one pick, this is a huge blow to any success they might have had. Enunwa, I don't know. We talked about it last time. I have Enunwa ranked pretty high up until today. I like him a lot as a player. I don't like the situation, obviously, but I did think he was going to get a lot of targets. And now they've got Robbie Anderson, rookie, Ardarius Stewart from Alabama coming in. They're going to be rough, man. I don't know if there's any targets in this passing game I'm interested in.
What do you think? How do you think this affects Bilal? because I know you're a big fan of Powell, and if I knew that there were no weapons on the outside, why not pack the box with 8 defenders and just go after the running back every time? Do you think this has a big impact?
Powell's a good receiving back. I think it may actually help his reception total. But yeah, I mean, they're not going to be able to run the ball, and they're probably not going to have many game scripts where they're going to try to run the ball. So I think he's going to get more receptions. I think it probably helps their tight ends. I forget who they have listed at number 1 right now, but I really like Austin Seferian-Jenkins. I think he might do something this year.
Yeah, I like Austin Seferian-Jenkins too. At number 1, they have Jordan Leggett. I don't really know a lot about him.
He's a rookie, yeah.
It's hard. I mean, this is an offense that's not going to be in scoring position a ton. They're not going to get like a ton of first downs. They may not find themselves in the red zone that often. I don't know. It's hard to be excited about anybody in the offense. But anyways, we can move on. What you got else, Michael?
Next news story. The Cowboys, your beloved Cowboys, Sherry, won the Hall of Fame game. So, one
game at a time.
That's worthy of itself that the Cowboys won. Number 2, there's a stat out there that I sent to you guys. For the listeners, you may not have seen it yet, but in the last, how many was it? 12? I think it was the last 12 Hall of Fame game winners. They did not go on to win a single playoff. And the Cowboys already have a hard enough time winning in the playoffs anyway. There's no way that this is good for anybody.
At least the Cowboys made the playoffs. I mean, I'm a Saints fan, so at the same time, it's depression central around the other, realms of the NFC, it looks like.
At least they made the playoffs, Eagles fan.
Yeah, I heard it. Did anybody watch the speeches or listen to the speeches at all?
I didn't, no.
I did a little bit, but I didn't catch much of it.
Jerry Jones had a really good one, but the one that I think stole the show was Kurt Warner. He was the last one to go. He only mentioned one quarterback one player throughout the entire speech. And in that speech, the only player that he ended up mentioning was Trent Edwards. And if you recall, Trent was the guy that he initially took the starting job from. So he was the veteran that Kurt came in and took the starting job from. And he said that those formative years, right after it was about a 2.5-year time period, but right after he took the job, that it was how he acted professionally and how he helped him as a young quarterback that allowed him to do the same when he was in New York with Eli, when he was in the situation with Mark Bulger in St. Louis, and then again when he was in Arizona. And that's what propelled him the rest of his career. So that was the only player he mentioned was him, and I thought that was really interesting.
Well, one last thing on the Hall of Fame game. I think Jerry might have a little insight. There was one player that piqued my interest. I don't think anybody would be too interested in redraft this year, but maybe if you're in a dynasty league or somebody to just keep on your radar for the future, Rico Gathers, tight end for the Cowboys, had a solid game and just looks like a freak athlete.
Rico, baby. It's interesting. He could have a shorter path to relevancy than maybe it seems. I mean, Witten is still there, but he's obviously he's been around a long time. I mean, if anything were to happen to him, I think he's the next best weapon in the passing game. I don't know. I think blocking, he's still probably a little bit behind, but he's a guy they're probably going to use at some point this year. I don't know. Like, I agree with you. I don't think he's necessarily fantasy relevant or anything now, but a couple things change. You never know.
All right, guys, we're going to play a game that we call Believe It or Not. All right, and in this game, each of us are going to make a bold statement, prediction about a player or a situation for this upcoming fantasy season. And we're going to get the reaction of the other 2 members of the podcast on whether or not they believe it or not. And then we will discuss. So let's start off with the most obvious statement anyone could make for this season is that Michael Crabtree will outscore Amari Cooper for the 3rd straight season. Do you guys believe it or not?
I believe it. I think you're right.
Okay. I do not believe it. And these are my points of why I do not believe it. Number one, Amari Cooper is younger than Michael Crabtree. I believe that the reason why I have to say I don't believe it is because in my wide receiver rankings, I have Cooper about 10 spots higher than Crabtree. If I said I believed it, I would have to switch that. So that's number one. I think that he's younger. I think that he's on the field more. If you look at his snap percentage last year in 2016, Cooper was on the field 62.3% of snaps. Crabtree was only on the field for 52% of the snaps. Now, while that's only a 10% difference, if you think about it over the total snaps of a game of an offensive season, that's a pretty big difference. So, one, I think opportunity. Two, now that people have seen Crabtree be more effective with Cooper there, I think they'll have equal presence. They'll equally be able to get the coverage. They won't be only focused on Cooper. I just think it's going to be more evenly spread out. Also, I mean, I see why you like him more. He is more consistent, but the upside is there with Cooper. He's going into his third year. I'm a big fan of third-year wide receivers, for the most part, that have proven something in the previous 2 years. So that's one reason. That's another reason why I like Cooper a lot. Either way, they're both looking at a 28th strength of schedule for wide receivers. So the Oakland Raiders, based on last season and the defenses, and obviously things change in the offseason, they're going into this next season with the 28th ranked schedule for wide receivers. That's not a really pretty sight. Derek Carr is looking at the toughest schedule for quarterbacks this season. So you got the wide receivers at 28, and you got Derek Carr at 32. That's a really tough pill to swallow. The only thing I can say for both of these guys is the savings grace will be if Lynch can be effective on the ground and create space for him to throw to either of those guys. So I'm not a believer, but I could obviously be proven wrong because he's done it the last 2 years. I'm believing in Amari Cooper. I think the price is going to come back down from the sky high the last 2 years.
Yeah, man, it's still sky high. He's going second round.
I think it's interesting because the difference between them, they're really similar players, and they put up really similar numbers the last couple of years, but Cooper's going, 2 or 3 rounds earlier? I mean,
yeah. I
saw a stat earlier today that Amari Cooper had 0 red zone touchdowns last year. I'm pretty sure Crabtree had at least 4, something like that. I don't know. I'm kind of with you. Crabtree's a lot more attractive to me. Although I like Cooper, I wish I could get him a little cheaper, though.
Yeah, so Crabtree is more attractive to me because I like the consistency. I agree that Cooper has the bigger upside. He is younger. He does have he's got a lot to prove because he's never scored more points than Michael Crabtree in a season. And Michael Crabtree was not that great until he got to Oakland and got Derek Carr, which Amari Cooper's always had Derek Carr. On a points per game for over Amari Cooper's career, Crabtree's got 1 more point per game in fantasy. Crabtree, in the last 2 years, in 2015 and 16 combined, Crabtree's got 34 red zone targets to Cooper's 21. That's a pretty huge difference. And Crabtree scored 17 touchdowns to Cooper's 11. And that's not in the red zone. Jerry points out an even bigger difference in that Cooper just doesn't get open in the red zone. He does not score red zone touchdowns, and that's Crabtree's game. Also, Cooper hurt his leg at the start of camp, and he hasn't practiced at all. I just think this season, and much like the last 2 seasons, are set up very well for Crabtree to outscore Cooper.
Let's say the auction price is the exact same. Who are you taking? And take away the injury about the start of the camp. Let's just take that away for a second. Let's say they're both healthy and they're both equal. You can get them for the same price, whatever that is. Which one are you taking?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a good way to phrase it because I think that Cooper has the ability to be the number 1 wide receiver in fantasy, and Crabtree does not have that ability. But I believe that Crabtree is more likely to score more points. And because I go with consistency, if it's not a dynasty league or it's not a keeper league, I would pick Crabtree over Cooper.
I do really like Amari Cooper, and I think there's a pretty good possibility regression happens and he does get touchdowns in the red zone eventually. I don't know if that's a sign for the rest of his career that he'll never get touchdowns in the red zone. But it's hard because Crabtree's done it. Crabtree's a really good weapon in the red zone, and touchdowns is what we're looking for, right?
It's true.
It is what I'm looking for.
Jerry, what you got for us, man?
My prediction is that Paxton Lynch will ultimately be named the starting quarterback for the Broncos. Not only that, but he'll finish as a top 15 fantasy quarterback. So the quarterback situation in Denver is certainly interesting. You've got Trevor Siemian, who was a starter last year. He actually played pretty good. I mean, this guy was a 7th-round pick out of Northwestern. He's kind of the wild card here, but we'll see. I'm not a huge fan of his talent. I know John Gruden loves him. They say he's a great game manager. He's gritty. He's the right kind of guy. He's team first. He carries his damn lunch pail to work every day. He's the first one to practice, the last one to leave. He walks to his weight room in 2 feet of snow in the freezing Colorado conditions, uphill both ways. I love this guy, actually. This guy's a football player. He grinds tape with authority and never misses a session. He drinks raw eggs right out of the blender, man. You don't want to mess with this Trevor Siemian guy. Whoa. Sorry. John Gruden kind of took over there for a second. I'm back in control now. So they say he takes good care of the football or whatever, but his college numbers kind of tell a different story. In college, he threw 24 interceptions compared to only 27 touchdowns. Counting both his college and NFL sessions, he's never thrown above 60% completion percentage. For comparison, Paxton Lynch threw 66% his last year at Memphis. So he's not necessarily even a great dink and dunker passer kind of guy, Not to mention, he was never actually the full-time starter on his college team at Northwestern. It's kind of a crazy stat. Trevor Siemian started 14 total games over his 4 years in college, yet he still completed, ranked 4th all-time at Northwestern in career passing yardage, 4th in completions, 6th in offensive yards, and 7th in passing touchdowns. I don't really know what to make of this. Honestly, I think he won the job because Paxton flat out wasn't ready, and he had a full year of experience on him. Not to mention, this also isn't the same team it was last year. Coach Gary Kubiak is gone. Instead, we've got a new coach, Vance Joseph. He was the defensive coordinator for the Dolphins last year. He brought in Mike McCoy, who is he's been the head coach of the Chargers the last 4 years. McCoy's teams were top 10 in the league in either points or total yards in 3 of the last 4 years he was the coach. So I think the offense will be good if they find the right quarterback, which I think is going to be Paxton Lynch. I think the coaching changes are good for him. Anything the coaches fell in love with last year in terms of comfort with Siemian are gone. I think it's a fresh start. I think they'll finally be looking to cash in on their highly prized 6'7" specimen quarterback of the future. Don't forget, they traded up in the first round to go get Paxton Lynch. They're firmly invested in him. Should be a year wiser and more ready to make an impact. So can he do it? That's still to be determined. But from everything I've read, he's a guy that gets better every day. I love his weapons and Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders, a wide receiver. I think if Lynch does get named the starter, that improves both of their fantasy outlooks for the season. I think he has added upside with his rushing ability. His new head coach actually compared him athletically to the old Steelers quarterback, Cordell Stewart, which I thought was interesting. But he's going to have to take care of business in the preseason, gain some momentum in this quarterback competition. But I think he's got a great shot. And if he wins the job, I think this whole offense is a lot more exciting to me. And I think he finishes as a quarterback 1.
All right, Mike, do you believe it or not?
I do not believe it. And let me tell you why. So the statement is that Paxton will win the job over Siemian and then become a top 15 quarterback. Is that correct, Jerry?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, so, and that's in fantasy. And so for me, I really have no idea if Paxton's going to win over Siemian. What I've read is that Simeon's getting the first crack. He's starting game 1 of the preseason, which that makes sense. He was a starter last year. Paxton's starting the second game of the preseason. I think it's a 50-50, but I personally have a hunch that they'll go veteran, and then they'll be ready to make that switch pretty early on if he struggles. Denver has the 21st strength of schedule for quarterbacks. Simeon's consistent. Paxton's more aggressive. You know, what I was reading about the notes from practices, it says that, you know, when Paxton tries to force things, that's when the turnovers, the interceptions, fumbles start happening. You know, I personally, if I'm choosing, I'm probably going to go Paxton because I'd rather have a consistent guy over necessarily a week-to-week consistent quarterback, because you got to be able to take shots. You got to be able to win. I don't think that defense is the same defense that the Ravens won when Trent Dilfer was the quarterback. So you got to be able to throw the ball. And no matter what, I think that they're going to need the running back to open up the field regardless. And that's your boy, C.J. Anderson. Check it out on the last 2 podcasts. A lot of name drops there. But I just can't believe he's going to be a top 15 quarterback, even if he starts all 16 games. Wentz wasn't a top 15 quarterbacks, and he started 16 games. And I have a hard time believing Paxton would do better than Wentz did last year.
Yeah, I got to go with not also. Michael makes a lot of good points there. I really just don't think either one of these guys are that good, honestly. And I hate to say it, you know, we're all recording this in Memphis, and we root for U of M football's fun when they've been good lately. But, you know, Simeon finished 26th last year as the starter for the Broncos. They really haven't added any significant weapons to the receiving corps. The Broncos personnel is already coming out saying that Simeon's winning the job just by default because of how poorly Lynch is playing right now. Not saying anything positive about Simeon, just talking about Lynch is not playing well. And man, it's making me think, you know, I'm a UT guy, and Jerry's a UT fan, and Riley Ferguson was there, and you know he's now Memphis's quarterback, and he's balling out, and the things he's doing there, he's looking better than Paxton did when he was there. It's making me think that Paxton might have been kind of a system quarterback in college, and it's hard to compare these college stats you threw out. So yeah, man, he may win the job. I want him to win the job just because the unknown to me is more exciting than what we've seen in Simeon. But I don't think either one of these guys have top 15 upside.
All right, so just for the record, though, so we're pretty much saying that Chad Kelly has 0 chance to win this job in Denver.
Excuse me. Chad Kelly is currently injured and out for the season, but
did not know that.
My part 2 of this prediction is that if Paxton Lynch does not win the job this year, Chad Kelly will win the job next year. So I guess more of my prediction is that I don't believe in Gruden's guy Simeon.
Yeah, I almost did agree with you just because I closed my eyes and saw John Gruden talking for a very long time, and I have to agree with anything John Gruden says because he's the master. So, but then
he went on forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so happy he joined us.
I was going to call in like
that. All right, our next statement on Believe It or Not for the guys. The statement is about David Johnson. I believe David Johnson will rush for more than 1,500 yards and catch for more than 1,000 yards and be the top player in all of fantasy at the end of this season. And here's some of the reasons why. So, one, Bruce Arians has already come out and said that on top of everything that happened last year, on top of scoring over 400 points according to Fantasy Pros, you know, they want to give him 30 touches a game. Whether it's rushing or catching, they want 30 touches a game. He is young. He's only going into his 3rd year. He's ready to prove himself even more so than he did last year. He's just a physical specimen. I follow him on every social media I can. The guy's constantly working out, eating right, taking care of his body. He's just – obviously all these running backs are one cut away from a devastating injury, but taking injury aside, I think this guy is just – he's something that you should turn down $100 of a trade offer for, in my opinion, when you have the right keeper values. I also think that when you talk about other people, as far as that would be the top fantasy player of next year, I think the top two names that you're going to think about anyway is David Johnson and then Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon Bell was really close, and he only played he missed the first 2 games last year due to suspension. So through 13 games, because he also sat out the last season, if you would have averaged that out, he would have came up just short of David Johnson. So they're the ones that you really got to compare. And I think when you think about Bell, there's so many red flags as far as off the field issue. You have one, his character issues, the previous suspensions in Pittsburgh that you never know if you're going to miss. I mean, even last year, he just missed 2 games. He's got the contract issues right now. He hadn't even shown up to camp. So I just don't – anybody that wants to say I'd rather take Bell over Johnson, it's just so many red flags that I would say that I just can't believe that, even if they're both healthy. And then the last point I'll make is that David Johnson has the 7th easiest schedule for running backs on this upcoming slew of a schedule. And so I just think that this guy has all the tools. He's the clear number 1. There's no running back by committee. They want him on the field all the time. He's going to be the number 1. And I think all those milestones I mentioned, I think he's going to hit every one of them. And I think I'm going to win my fantasy league because of it. What do y'all think? Do you believe it or not?
I do not believe you're going to win the fantasy league. But I'm really on the fence here about David Johnson. I mean, you said so many true statements just then. He is the most reliable running back in the league. He's the most surefire bet to be the number 1 running back in fantasy. But running back is the least reliable position there is. I have a hard time. I just have a hard time betting on any running back repeating that kind of production. So I'm going to have to go with not, but it's very on the fence. I'm so torn. You know, he was far and away the number 1 running back in the league last year. He had 1,239 rushing yards and 879 receiving yards. And it's not far off from your 1,500 and 1,000 that you said. I looked back to 2009. And since then, no running back who finished number 1 has finished number 1 or number 2 the following year. Only Chris Johnson has finished in the top 3. No other running back has finished above 5th following a number 1 fantasy season. Adrian Peterson's consistently in that top 5, but he never had back-to-back number 1 seasons. No running back did. And I didn't go back farther than 2009, but I think that's pretty relevant considering how the position's changed. You know, I don't know. Jerry, what do you think?
I do not believe it. I'm kind of with Richie. Almost the reasoning is it's just hard to repeat it, I think. But I have another reason why. I thought it was interesting that the Cardinals re-signed Chris Johnson. And it doesn't seem very significant. But I read an article on RotoViz, and it had splits from like the games in which Chris Johnson was healthy last year and the games in which he wasn't. And the games in which he wasn't, obviously David Johnson was on the field almost the whole game. And he averaged 7 more fantasy points per game in PPR without Chris Johnson in the game.
Wow.
And I don't know that that's significant. Even if you extrapolate that all the way out into a full game season, he still finishes as the number 1 running back in fantasy, even with Chris Johnson by his side.
Wow.
But it's not necessarily that humongous lead that he had, you know, without him. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, I thought it was a really good stat. I don't know. But they re-signed him for another year. Apparently the Cardinals really like Chris Johnson, and they trust him in certain situations. And I don't know, I wonder if they're going to keep using him the same way constantly. I don't know. I think I would still probably take him number 1 in the draft. I'm not saying Absolutely. He's not, but I just don't think it's a surefire, definite.
So is it that you guys – so it's the last part of my statement that you guys are not believing. So what about the 1,500 yards rushing? What about the 1,000 yards receiving? And then the third part would be the top fantasy player, which both of you have already stated clearly that you don't think that he'll repeat just because no running back has since at least before 2009, maybe even further back. What about the 1,500 yards and the 1,000?
I think he's got a better chance than any running back in the league to do all 3 of those things. But I just can't bet on them happening. That's all it is.
Yeah, I agree.
If I'm picking number 1, I'm picking David Johnson. But I'm not gonna feel incredible about the fact that he's guaranteed to finish number one.
It's probably as safe as bet as anybody else, though. I mean, if you're going to get a bet on one guy to finish number one, I would probably pick David Johnson.
Yeah, I think we're splitting hairs on this one.
Yeah, I do.
So this offer that I have in our league is a pretty big offer. I don't know. I just imagine the best offer anybody could give you for whatever your league settings are for you listeners out there. This is by far something I couldn't even fathom. But even still,
I still don't believe somebody made you that offer.
I got text proof.
Yeah, I'm skeptical.
I have text proof.
Okay.
It's a real thing. But anyway, so if he finishes in the top 10, like let's just say that. I mean, it's so hard for running backs to repeat in the top 10, top 5 year to year anyway. If he finishes in the top 10 for what I'm going to pay for him, it's still going to be a killer value. And then the potential upside is that he is the top fantasy player. I just don't think I'd live with myself if I traded him and he ended up doing that versus if I hold on to him and he doesn't. Y'all see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
Based on
me and Richie are essentially saying our bet is that he won't. So, Richie, if you were in that position, would you sell him if it was you?
I mean, for what he got offered a third of our freaking auction budget. Yeah, I mean, that to me, like the players you're going to get in return are great, but I mean, you can only start one of them. So, David Johnson, from those numbers I pulled back to 2009, like I do believe he's pretty much a lock to finish in the top 7 running backs, and that's huge. It would have to be a huge offer to sell him, but you did get a huge offer. I would sell him for a third of our auction budget. I do want to say, though, last year, I don't want to discount what David Johnson did, but Palmer did have a really big down year for what he usually does. They said he had arm strength issues last year, that his arm was basically shot going into the start of the season. He had Michael Floyd and John Brown were basically just non-existent for them last year. So I think they'll probably, while David Johnson is their best player and they're going to lean on him to win games, I think they're probably going to have a better passing game this year than they did last year.
Yeah, I agree. I think hopefully that opens up the field. They don't just pack the box, but again, top 5, top 7, that would be just fantastic for me from a consistency standpoint.
Mm-hmm. Y'all hear me banging on the table? That's me banging on the table for Chad Williams.
Chad Williams.
Just keep the name in mind.
Chad Williams. Hey, fun fact about David Johnson. So I'm such a fan that I follow him on Instagram, and these companies will ask these players to post a link of like their own site. It's basically a page where they get to pick their t-shirt designs and their hat designs and all this other stuff. And so I click on it and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna show up in my owners meeting in my main league in my David Johnson t-shirt. And it's gonna be my birthday present to myself. I ordered the extra large t-shirt of just this awesome move on the shirt. It's a gray shirt. It was fantastic. Comes in the mail. I open it up. I put it up as if I'm looking at it. And sure enough, this thing looks like it wouldn't even fit on somebody that was a small.
What?
And I'm like, what?
Was it a youth extra large?
No, this was an adult extra large. The thing is, this material, it's almost like the Under Armour, like the mesh. I mean, this material was supposed to stretch. And you guys have seen my body figure. You don't want that stretching on what I have. So I have no doubt I probably could have stretched into it. But the fact that they said extra large is just criminal. And then I had to send it back for only 70% of what I paid for it. And I just feel like that's probably what I'm going to end up with this year for David Johnson. I think it's a bad omen. I think I'm going to get 70% of his production this year.
Hey, you know what? I want to applaud David Johnson for trying to motivate you to get in the gym. So thank you, David Johnson.
I think it's a sign you should sell him. The jersey didn't fit.
If it doesn't fit,
sell it.
If it doesn't fit, you must have quit and sell.
Okay, hey guys,
I do have a trivia question. So before this, all right. So Michael, I did hear you correctly. You think that he's going to get 1,500 yards rushing and 1,000 yards receiving, correct?
That is my believe it statement.
How many backs in the history of this beautiful game do you think have ever gotten it? Both 1,000 rushing and 1,000 receiving?
My very educated guess is 3.
He's looking to be the third person. There's been 2. Marshall Faulk did it in 1999, and Roger Craig did it, I think, in 1991. Now, he had a tad bit over 1,200 yards on the ground last year and about 860 to 880 yards receiving. So he said he's going for 1,000 each. I think that's doable. I just cannot humanly see a man getting 1,500 yards rushing and 1,000 yards receiving. Maybe 1,000 each.
He's no Roger Craig, let's be honest.
We all remember that season.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Interesting stat, Danny. Stay tuned this year as he's about to do it.
He wasn't that far off.
If he does, he will win people their fantasy leagues.
Oh, easily.
He will be an X factor that makes up for your crappy tight end because you missed out on the Gronk and the second tier tight ends. He's going to make up for the quarterback that you didn't get to like round 12 or something. He's going to make up for all your other crappy picks if he can do that. So keep that in mind if you get the opportunity to get him in your auction or high in a standard league.
If Bishop Sankey does that, he'll win some people some leagues too.
Please don't ever bring up Bishop Sankey's name to me again.
Surely he's still not on the
I'm
roster.
still holding out hope, man.
Yeah, not on the Titans roster. Freaking.
What a bust. What a bust. All right, guys. Well, that was a really good segment. Thank you for tuning in. If you want to find out more information about who we are as co-commish, go to co-commish.wordpress.com. Click on the page. It's the No Sleep Till Football podcast page. We also have a page for affiliated leagues. If you're interested in joining one or want to get more information about how we run our leagues, go to that page. We're on Twitter at co-commish-admin. That's Twitter at co-commish-admin, and then also on Instagram at co-commish-admin. So check us out. Send us some love. We'll get back to you as soon as we can.
All right, that's going to wrap up part 1 of our preseason predictions episode. Check out the rest in part 2. Thanks so much for sticking it out with us. If you like our podcast, hit the subscribe button. Shoot us a line, leave us a comment, anything to let us know you care. Make us all really happy. See you guys next time. Stay woke, friends.
Cooper Crabtree, who should it be? If you are wise, you will pick Crabtree. Crabtree, Cooper, what should you do? If you pick Crab, your team will be super.